Hi, it's Anish Giri here. Welcome to the second round, the Candidates tournament. The bar was set very high in the first round. There's some incredible fights. Two winners. In the second round, it was quite important. The two winners were going to face each other. Jan Nepomucci and Fabiana Caruana. Jan with the white pieces. Fabi, always well prepared. So I was expecting a very exciting fight, and I wasn't disappointed. It's indeed thrilling. We'll check that out later. The big question I had was, were Hikaru and Liren, in fact, going to come back today? Because it's always much easier to bounce back right away and then forget these two games as if they didn't happen, back to 50%, rather than start grinding out from a -1 position in the tournament, and that's just really hard. So I was really hoping for Hikaru and Ding fans that they were going to strike back right today, because it's very likely either today or perhaps never. So I knew that the task for Ding was going to be much harder because he had the black pieces against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Hikaru had the white pieces against Timur Radjabov. Radjabov didn't do very well in his last event. It looked like somewhat of a target in this tournament as well, and we'll see in our game of the day what happened there. For now, let's just jump straight into the games. No need to give any spoilers, but I gotta tell you, good stuff today as well. Okay, let's start with the game of Hikaru against Radjabov. Game of the day. And here on my channel, I'm going to take a quick look at it, go through the highlights. You can find the entire game of the day covered in great detail and all kinds of chessable perks in my chessable course. They also do puzzles and whatnot. Do check that out. But here, quickly, the Berlin defense is also Timur's favorite, just like Hikaru. Hikaru lost with it yesterday against Fabio, and now he had a chance to show that he has some ideas for white as well. He played the knight bd2 system. There are different move orders here. I played c3 against Radjabov in recent Norway chess tournament. He played d6, which is already a wrong move order. So Hikaru trying a different move order, seeing maybe Timur is still not entirely on it. Here Timur played knight d4, very principled move. Number takes, c3, d4. This is all theory, as Hikaru likes to say, castle, queen h5, and it's a new move. I thought it's been played before. I thought d5 is well known, but I checked the database. Turns out it still has never been played before. This d5 push is something I knew from long back and is still recommended by the engine as the best move. A great idea to open files for rooks and diagonals for the bishops. In an open position, bishops love freedom, and this d5 move is an important idea. It's still a novelty, but in fact, it's not very well hidden. The engine shows it right away. Timur played it later in this version. You do need to free up pieces, and the d pawn anyway is going to be a weak pawn. So yeah, good idea. It's a little bit of a wrong execution. Timur should have played 12 d5, would be a bit more accurate. Here he got into some trouble. Was a pawn down, and eventually they got an endgame. I'll scroll quickly through the moves. I decided not to jump this time. I saw people like when I showed move by move, not to get confused. We got this endgame, and when I saw this endgame, I thought, okay, it must be very drawish. And drawish it is, but Hikaru slowly put some pressure. I think the pivotal moment was later. Here may be possible to start with g5, by the way, not to get the pawn fixed on the light square. The color of the bishop, it's well known that you don't want to have the pawn fixed there. But Timur got an extra tempo for his counterplay, so I understand that decision. He also knows all the basics. But he panicked here, so this is a very important psychological moment. When you're very slightly worse, you do fish for these move repetitions. You can't offer a draw before move 40, so you go here you go back, and you're like, well, we both know it's equal, maybe draw. And Hikaru here saying, no draw, b3, I'm going to play for a win, I have no risk, and this is a painful moment. Timur could have played another move here. I think he could have played the bishop move, why not? Bishop somewhere here or here, whatever. But he tested Hikaru and gave him a chance to make a draw. And when Hikaru refused that chance, it puts Timur at a certain psychological disadvantage. So I don't like these fishing for a move repetition things. I think here Timur was a little bit psychologically attacked after this move b3. And a mistake came immediately here on move 35 with rook d5. It's somewhat of a panic. After rook c6, Hikaru just wins a pawn. And I understand that black's trying to get some counterplay, but there is no need to give a pawn for that. could have made a move by bishop and then try to reposition the rook via d8 to e8 and then get counterplay. So perhaps bishop g4, rook, and then after c4, something like takes, rook d8. Of course, white has the c pawn, but the bishop controls it for now, and rook e8 is going to be bothering, maybe coming after this pawn. The computer showing that this is holding for black fully. It does look a little bit worrying. White is pushing without risk, but it was certainly better than the game. And after rook d6, rook c6, Hikaru won the pawn. And if you look with the engine, there were a lot of mistakes down the road. Computer goes a bit higher, a bit lower, the bar swings a little bit here and there, but basically he was always a pawn up, and it was always close to some counterplay, but maybe not. And here, for example, big mistake, should have gone king f4 for some mathematical reason. It's really hard to fully explain why that is the best move. Somehow it was winning. This is apparently is objectively a draw after rook b1 because you've got a check here in some lines, but it's all very subtle. Basically, Hikaru was in the driver's seat, and finally he just managed to grind it out. A nice finish here. Timur tried some counterplay, but check first, then check. The knight is just in time to protect this pawn and stop it from queening. Hikaru won a nice game here. Timur looked like he was about to pick up the last pawn, but nice wall here. The rook is blocking the b file and the knight is blocking the square, so the king is somehow cut out by this sort of a wall here. Can't draw it, but you can see it, and king cannot get near the a7 pawn, and knight c8, rook b8 is coming. Good win by Hikaru. What shall I say? I have to say Timur really has to get himself together, because the last two tournaments have been a bit of the same. He's just not on it with the black pieces in the opening, and then I think the lack of confidence is there a little bit, and yeah, he seems to be struggling, but the tournament is long, so maybe he'll bounce back. For now, it's Hikaru who bounced back. So good news for him. Let's look at the next game. Game of Duda against Ding. The most uneventful game of the round in terms of swings and evaluation, in terms of action. Pretty even game throughout. Duda played the Italian against Ding. Ding responded with the a5 system that he does so often, trying to control the space here. The disadvantage is that you weaken the square, which is relevant after bishop e6, then bishop to b5. That's why a6 has that going for it, but then it would allow white to gain more space. Italian is a very subtle, interesting opening. I've even done a course on that. Chessable guys will be very happy. I'm going to plug my course right now. So yeah, very exciting. But this is all big theory. Queen b8, a7, all theory as well. Very obscure idea, but a quite nice one. The queen gets active in this somewhat unusual way, and the d4 square is under control here for black. If white wants to push d4, he has to give part with his bishops, and that's what happened. Duda parted with his bishops, and now we got this interesting closed murky position, and it's very hard to understand what's going on. Now it's a big question whether the absence of the queen on the king side is going to be a problem. The queen is in this weird part of the board where it's sort of somewhat irrelevant, and white sort of has some attacking ideas, but his queen also is not quite there yet. And with the knight potentially going to g8, king is quite well guarded, and it's always a question: is white able to create some attack because the queen is out of play, or is he not? And in this game, white didn't get very far. Knight g8, typical idea. f6, and knight is guarding the h6 pawn, and c5 closing the bishop, but controls the d4 square. And after c6, the bishop can get back into the game, which is what happened. f4 pushes, very logical. At some point, Ding just decided to stop it. The engine's not thrilled with that. It's possible also to have allowed it and then just go for d5 push. Very unclear game, to be honest. Nobody knew really what was going on. It's roughly balanced. Ding pushed f5, but after this operation taking everything, they found a move repetition. It's hard to find a plan really for black, for sure. He doesn't have this g4 push is an idea, but it's hard to execute it without it backfiring. And white has an idea, in fact, to trade rooks, like rook b1, bishop c1, rook a3, something like this. Try to trade a pair of rooks. But if he does so, he will get his bishop out of position, and maybe then some g4, h5 action can happen. Who knows? With some bishop d8 somewhere. And both sides decided to just stay coordinated, but then it's hard to find a breakthrough, hard to find a plan. And the game was drawn. I think Ding maybe still lacked a bit of confidence to go for more in this game. Of course, you want to come back with the black pieces, but after losing the first one, you also don't want to lose 2 in a row. So I guess he was hesitant a little bit and took the draw. He'll have a chance to come back with the white pieces, so we'll see about that. Next game, meanwhile, an interesting one, as are all the games, of course. Rapport against Alireza. Now, what was striking in this game is that in the opening, again, a very obscure line by Rapport, queen takes d4. He seems to be playing a lot of sidelines. True to himself, he stays. Now, those who followed my recap yesterday, they will recognize this c5 idea where Rapport goes for the exact same pawn structure as he played yesterday with the black pieces. So he learned that this is not so simple, and here he could get the same kind of endgame. He has a much worse version with white than his opponent yesterday. In that game, black knight was on e7, the bishop was even worse on g7. Here, black is a bit more coordinated. Still, he was pushing with the white pieces, got all the pieces towards the center, did a lot of trades, but kept a small edge. And here's got a better bishop against the knight, very minuscule advantage, until a rook endgame where suddenly Alireza allowed Richard to activate his rooks on the 7th rank, which is very scary. It seemed somewhat concrete though. Alireza was hoping that maybe it's a forced draw, but actually it's not. Here, the computer was suggesting certain wins like rook g7, rook d7, and then you collect the d pawn, and then the e and the b pawns are going to march forward. Also e6, rook g3, king c4 first, similar idea. And even in the game after king e4, white is still pressing. Of course, he can always take the draw, but he has some ideas. These 2 passed pawns are still there, and later on there was one more swing on this move 51. Black should have just played the natural d3. There was nothing too scary there after king f5. Rook g8 apparently gives a draw, but this allowed a very, very complicated win after king f5. Very weird, murky line. I don't even want to delve deep into it, but basically a missed opportunity by Richard, as Alireza was able to secure the draw relatively easily here. The king was able to come back. Now if you give a check, the pawn endgame is draw because of the opposition business. Something you should study. Check out my buddy Gotham's videos. He surely has some video on opposition, and if he doesn't, Gotham, go make a video on opposition. Noobs need to know that. Missed opportunity by Richard, but what is important is that Alireza saved the second bad position. And sometimes, I mean not always, there are 2 types of scenarios. When you keep saving bad positions, there is a scenario in which at some point you will no longer do that and you just collapse. But there's also a scenario where you take these saves, count them as blessings, and then you feel that the fortune is favoring you, and then you slowly turn things around and end up striking. So Alireza fans, you can start slowly getting optimistic, because I think good things might happen for him. The most interesting opening, perhaps, of the day, the opening idea of the day, opening note of the day, is once again was played by Fabiano Caruana. Fabi, very well prepared, came up with an interesting idea with the black pieces in the Italian. He played this h6 g5 system, which is pretty well known. Carlsen played it at some point, but he played now knight g4. Previously, people played knight to h5 or knight to h7. Knight g4, different way of developing, redeploying pieces, hitting the f2 pawn, but freeing square for the queen here. And after rook to queen f6, knight takes f2 is sort of an idea. So queen e1 was logical. Queen g7, knight should be able to go back now after h3. Knight f1, castle, knight g3, knight e7. An interesting position, and here Jan went for the typical d4 opening of the position, but not sure if he had enough compensation. After takes knight c6, rook f3, knight d4. Of course, there is some compensation. The h6, g5 pawns are always going to be weakening the king, but black has good control of the e5 square, and the queen is there guarding the king quite well. Quite an interesting position for black. Fabi also did play very well. c5 I like very much, clarifying the matters, and then b5 as well, a great push. Opening files for the rook potentially, creating counterplay here before white starts gathering pieces towards the black king, which is, by the way, not so easy. Knight h5 is met by queen g6, hitting the knight, and knight f5 will will be met by queen f6, but potentially I can always capture the knight as well. So pretty safe king for black for now, but some counterplay is needed. So b5 I liked, and a critical point came as the player started repeating moves. Jan was of course thinking about f4, h4, all sorts of shots, but couldn't make anything work, so just played queen d1, bishop d7, and just rook c2. And after takes, rook a b8, queen h5, rook g8, defending from bishop takes g5. Players found the move repetition, bishop b2, threatening bishop takes e5 when f7 pawn is hanging. And after rook e8, bishop c1 back, they repeated moves. Fabi dropped quite a bit low on time here, and it was understandable that he took the draw, especially since he has got a +1 lead together with Jan, but he had the black pieces today, so draw is a fine result. But there was an interesting opportunity here to play on with rook takes b2, and I really like that, just sacrificing an exchange. But you've got these pawns here, especially the one on a3 is pretty good. Bishop is very firm on c5, supported by the d6 pawn. Knight is pretty firm here as well. You can play rook g7, further strengthening the f7 pawn. Some g4 ideas are also in the air. Queen takes f5 in the air as well. But with all these things in the air and not much time on the clock, Fabi thought, you know what, this is risky business. Let's play it safe and call it a day. Understandable. But if you do take so much risk with black in the opening, you might wonder, well, perhaps you just go all in and yeah, who knows. But he didn't. Anyway, that is for this game of Fabi against Jan. And those are the games for today. Tomorrow, another thrilling pairing. I will single out Firouzja against Nakamura. Time for Alireza to make a statement. He's got a white pieces against Hikaru. Possible to cook something up there in the opening. I know Alireza has got a very serious team of seconds. But Hikaru, he just came back from a tough game yesterday with a very, very important win today. And he's going to be looking for counter chances. So I expect a lot of fire there. Fabi with the white pieces against Duda. Fabi, I know him. He always sees games like that as opportunities. He is very well prepared with the white pieces. And Krzysztof Duda doesn't have his openings always completely figured out. He likes a little bit of variety, likes to give up opportunities to the opponents, opportunities to himself, a little bit of a loose player in the opening. Fabi will like that, try to strike. Big game for Ding. White against Rapport. I think this is the moment for him to try and come back in the tournament. If he doesn't win tomorrow, it's going to be really, really hard. If you are a -1 every day, you just have to get that win. You have to get back to 50% as at least a starting platform for further gains. And okay, Radjabov with white against Nepomniachtchi. Nepomniachtchi is doing well so far. I expect Radjabov to play things quite safe. Don't expect much fireworks there. But who knows? Jan, very tricky player, will keep in mind the fact that Timur is in bad shape and will definitely try to, perhaps, if he gets a chance, get things going. We're going to be watching that game too. And with that, our recap is done. Do, as always, check out my Chessable course where I covered Game of the Day in greater detail and where you've got all the puzzles and all the nice Chessable things as always. So do check that out. The link is going to be everywhere, I'm sure, in the description, in the comments, everywhere. So with that, I'll conclude today's recap. Thank you for watching and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.